Hello, and welcome to Friendship, Wellness, and Wisdom with your hosts, Heather and Rachel.
Together, we're here to talk about all things self-care, from fitness to mindfulness and everything in between.
Whether it's yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, or practices like tapping and meditation, we're here to help you discover new ways to care for yourself.
We'll also share tips on positive self-talk, finding time for self-care, and creating routines that stick.
We're here to provide you with plenty of tips, tricks, and unsolicited life advice.
Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Join our community, and together we can explore the path to wellness. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Friendship, Wellness, and Wisdom.
Today, we're talking about how we use definitive language and why it matters.
Yeah, I am. I'm very, very guilty of this. I've been catching myself over and over again. So we're gonna jump right in and we'll start with why is first of all, what are definitives? You want to just
Yeah, so our definitives are like never and always. And the things that like you plug in and it's like, I never get this right. I'm always wrong. She never calls me back.
right. He
I'm
never
always,
shows up on time. Yeah.
right. I'm always the one that reaches out first,
hmm
things like that. So these are like the definitive language is just so, it's like putting up a wall. Um, and I wrote this blog because of that. Like I live in a world where a lot of people use definitives.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We all do. It's because you know what it's the patterns that we talk about all the time. Our brains love patterns because it makes life easier. So when we're super decisive and definitive like this, it makes our brain's job easier.
But it doesn't.
Right. Well, it thinks that it does, right? So it's working less. We might be working harder, but our brain's like, yep, nope, this is just how it is. So
Right. Yeah.
peace
It
out.
it really closes things off for us and our relationships with other people and us with the relationship with ourselves.
Yeah,
So we're gonna get into all that though.
but
Um
absolutely.
yeah, so the nevers, the always, the things that are, definitive. They're just
Definitive.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, they're just
exactly. Yeah,
like,
exactly what it is. Definitive, like
yeah,
absolute. Those
yes.
things that are just like, that's how it is.
Yeah,
And that's it.
there's no wiggle room, right?
No, absolutely not. That's black and white.
Yeah.
It's carved in stone. It's absolute.
Right.
So, all right. So, why is speaking in definitives, like always and never, something we need to be mindful of? Like, why do we need to pay attention to these things?
So that's a great question, right? Because we do it so unconsciously, right?
hmm
Um, so when we use absolutes like always and never, we box ourselves or others into a pattern that might be, you know, might not be there anymore for
hmm
ourselves mostly, but a lot of times for others. It shuts down the possibilities. For example, if I say, I always mess up when I'm trying to do something new, then my brain is going to be like, you're going to mess this up. And, why even try type thing.
hmm
And then it makes it almost impossible to get that outcome that you're looking for. So it kind of just puts up a wall.
No, it does definitely makes things harder when you're telling yourself, like you're setting yourself up to, make a mistake, to do a bad job,
Hmm.
and, it's perfectly normal to mess up when you're doing
Totally.
something new. Like, and you probably will make mistakes,
That's how
but
you learn.
right, sometimes in that mindset, like you almost think that you failed and really all you did was make a mistake that's easily fixable. But when you've
Hmm.
got that, like, oh, I ruined everything,
Yeah.
it makes it hard to move forward then from that point because you're like, oh, why do I even try? I
Yeah.
always mess it up.
Yeah. And it also, the other piece of it is the old adage, right? If you think you can't, you can't.
Can't,
If
yeah,
you
or
think you
what
can,
was
you
it? If
can.
you think you can,
You can.
you think you can, or you think you can't, like you're right.
You're right. Yeah. So, I mean, it doesn't it doesn't help your brain, right? Your brain is like we talk about the brain all the time, and the brain is like, oh, we're going to keep ourselves safe. So we never and always.
Right. Yeah. And
Like,
but it keeps things short and sweet and to the point. So it makes things more simple, but it doesn't really make things easier for us. Like we end up
mhm,
putting roadblocks up just to make things like shorter and sweeter and like kind of wrap it up like nice and
right,
neat, right?
right.
Nice, neat little package. So, all right. Is this going to apply to number one, like how we talk to ourselves, how we talk about ourselves,
Yeah.
and then how we talk about others?
Yeah, so it applies to all of it, right? They never listen. It always happens. It really just now it either limits the communication with another person, right?
Hmm.
It limits our communication with ourselves to talk. Now we have to work harder to talk ourselves up to like get over like something, right? So if we're constantly saying the nevers, the always, and putting those definitives in there, then we're stopping ourselves. We're putting up this roadblock. And now we have to work harder. Like you said, it makes it simpler, but it makes it harder. Now we have to work harder to get our brain on board to go over that
Right.
obstacle, right? And it's the same when you're communicating with others. If you automatically think somebody is going to say no, or if you automatically think somebody is going to react or act in a certain way, you don't approach them as well,
No, you
right?
definitely, I know that I don't. I was super guilty of doing this for the longest time. And what I was really lucky in the fact was is I caught it every time that I was wrong. I would set myself up, I'd work myself up into like such a frenzy sometimes, and then find that someone was very agreeable. And I was like, damn, I wasted a ton of energy.
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, you
Yeah.
know what? Even though most of the time it's like this, there are times when it's easy. And I'm like, why would I want to sabotage that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't realize that when you approach people also, you have an air about you if you have that mindset, right? So
Hmm.
you also could cause them to now not
Right.
want to do whatever you're asking them to do or not respond well because you have an air about you and you don't even realize it because of your mindset of you thinking in
Well,
definitives.
I think sometimes you're ready for a fight, right? So you're expecting someone to disagree with you,
Hmm.
and like you kind of come at it kind of like rough and with a bit of an attitude because you're like ready to like go head to head.
Yeah.
And, that's definitely gonna that energy, they're gonna pick up on that.
Well,
Hopefully if it's someone who's close with you, they'll just like laugh at you and be like, yeah, you're crazy. But, a lot of times it can put other people like on the defensive.
yeah, totally.
I know with me, I'm like it's kind of brings this up when I was a kid. Everybody would always tell me to smile. And then always, right? And then it got a little annoying. I'm not gonna because I had dimples and people would pinch my face.
Hmm.
And like strangers. Who comes up to like someone you don't know and like touches their face? That's just not right. So I got out of the habit of smiling because like I didn't want strange people touching my face. And then after a while, people just was, what's wrong with you? You never smile. You never smile. And for years, I just didn't smile because I
Hmm.
started telling myself, oh, I don't smile. I almost forgot why. Like I stopped smiling. Like I don't know. I didn't have a reason why, in my
Yeah.
head. I'd forgotten that like I had kind of stopped smiling because I want people to come up and pinch my face. But
It hurts.
when you hear that all the time, like it was constant. Why aren't you smiling? You should smile more. You never smile. You never smile.
Hmm.
Okay, I never smile. So I guess, and for
Yeah.
years, I didn't really smile much because
Yeah.
everyone told me I
Yeah.
never smile.
Well, and you just did the double definitive, right? Always, people would
Yeah.
always tell me to
But
smile
people
because
would
I never
always tell me
smiled.
that. Right. So I stopped. Yeah. See how it works?
It's very simple to do.
Yeah. It's a really, really easy. And when you like after a while, you catch it and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't have to play by these rules.
No, no. We can change it at any time.
Absolutely. Like sometimes I'll catch myself, sometimes someone else will catch me. And it's kind of nice because you can go, oh, wait, I can change this. So
Yeah.
I think that's the coolest part of the whole thing right there.
I
All
talk to
right.
my mom about definitives all the time because my mom talks in definitives all the
Yeah.
time. And, you know, I think a lot of people do. I think it's super common, right?
Absolutely.
That people, you know, I think always, never, they're plug-in words too, right? It's not necessarily that you believe that definitive, but
Right. But you
they're
need that adjective. So
right.
you're
So they're
throwing
just, yeah, so
that
they're
in
just
there.
plug-in words. And I know like my mom gets frustrated because, you know, dealing with doctors and things like
Yeah.
that. And so, oh, they never call me back. You know, they always say that this is something, whatever she's talking about at the time. And I'm like, Mom, you have to stop talking in definitives because you're already getting wound up before you even have the conversation,
Right.
right? You're already there, you're already heightened before you actually have the conversation. And then sometimes she'll have the conversation and oh, that went really well. I'm like, yeah, because you kind of like drew it back a little bit and realized that we're in the moment and it's not always a never, right?
Yeah. It's hard though when you get into those habits, like you start forming those patterns, we
Mm-hmm.
tend to hold on to them and
Yeah,
it becomes like that always, always, always. All right.
right.
What's a simple way to shift this? Like how do we flip this?
Yeah, so it's just about adding positivity into a sentence. Instead of saying, I'll never figure it out, trying to change your words, right? I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm working on
Mm-hmm.
it. Those little words that you kind of plug in, the yet, are very powerful, right? They kind of elevate the sentence and they elevate the mindset. It's like, oh, yeah, I haven't figured it out yet, but I'm working on it and I'll get there, you know? And so you have to change those words so you can change your world. And it does, it changes everything and it changes your perspective. And so it takes time and you have to recognize it first, right? So, like you said, oh, then you started to recognize
Mm-hmm.
that you were doing it. But if you can't recognize it because they're just plug in words, then that's harder, right? It's harder because you are just plugging in a word and you're not even being conscious of the word that you're plugging in. And the word is a definitive.
Yeah, I think as we're like looking to make changes in our lives and we start like to form new habits and like disrupt old patterns, those are the times where it's easier to pick up on this stuff. Like
Yeah.
you try something new, you're trying a new practice, you're trying to work on your mindset or you're trying to work on your self-talk. That's when it's easier to start to pick up on this stuff. And then the more you do it, the more you're mindful in whatever, practice that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes things you're not even looking for will pop up and it's like you get that little light bulb like aha moment and it's like,
Right.
oh, okay, like all right, how do I change this around to make it work for me? And
Right.
there are some things where like I'll do it like once or twice and then I'll forget and then
Absolutely.
you kind of come back to it, but it's the more you practice it, the easier it becomes and the more of a habit you can make out of it.
Right. And the other thing is like if you don't even know that you do it, how do you change it?
Yeah, well, that's yeah.
Right?
I think we have
It's
to
like
pay a little bit more attention to what we're doing. It's really easy, much easier now than it ever has been to not pay attention. There's
mhm.
so kind of get lost
Yeah, it's
in all of the technology,
yeah.
like TV, movies, or everything
Life
that's on our
life is
phones,
a
like
definite distraction.
right. But I think there's so many distractions now too. Sometimes like life kind of takes a
Yeah.
back seat to all of like the just stuff
Yeah.
that's going on out there. It's a lot easier to live life with, it's just there's more distractions, I think, than ever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just something to look out for. And again, it's just another way to be mindful, right? Again, we just talked about this a little bit. So, I mean, I know I have, I'm sure you have too, right? Have
Oh,
you've
totally.
used definitives, right? And you catch yourself. And then what do you do? What do you do when you catch yourself?
I like I know sometimes I'll say like something in class and I'll be like, I always see this. And then I go, well, not really. Once or twice.
Yeah,
Only,
exactly. Right? Yeah.
like, And people just look at me and I'm like, I'm just correcting myself, so don't worry about it. Like,
So yes, you always put a much different twist on it than I
yeah,
do. Like I'll be like very like studious about it. I'll be like, you know what? That doesn't really sound right. Like, and I'll go into this whole crazy explanation, whether it's to whoever's not paying a damn bit of attention to what I'm saying or myself, where you're just like, wait, no, that's not right. Yeah, no, no, no.
yeah.
It's not always happened like twice.
I'm just, I think
But recently, so
I think the reality is, um, I am 100% just like everybody else, human. And things that I work on so hard, I still do, right? And so it's very humanistic to be like, oh, to beat myself up or whatever, but I'm not in that like mindset of my life. And
right.
I'm like, the reality is if I'm trying to change something, beating myself up doesn't help me change it.
No.
So I just kind of call it out and make a joke about it. I'm just like, oh, always that, yeah, I always see this. And it just makes everybody in the class be like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, ah, don't worry about it. If
What are
you
you
were in my
talking
head,
about and who are you talking to?
right. I just, and I'm sure I do it with my kids and my husband and my mom and things like that. But I'm the type of person I, I just call out my stuff. I just call it out and be like, oh, and people wouldn't know, and because they don't pay attention to it, but I pay attention to it, so
Right.
now they know. And
Hey
I'm just
guys, I
like,
just made a mistake.
yes,
And
pretty much,
everyone.
yeah, totally. Like it is what it is. My son says to me all the time, like he's like, Mom, nobody would have known if you didn't just shout it out. I'm like, I know, it's
Yeah.
okay,
But
it's okay,
I know, I noticed. So
right?
yay me.
I noticed. I want everybody to be into. I want everybody to know why I'm laughing
Right.
because I usually laugh about it, and so I want everybody to know why I'm laughing. So I'm gonna shout it out.
Like either way, they probably think you're crazy anyway. So,
I'm okay with that.
they're in on the joke now.
Yes,
Yay.
awesome.
I know my kids just walk around shaking their head at me most of the time, like, Mom, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, yes, I can. I just did it.
I just did it. It happened. It
Mm-hmm.
totally just happened.
I'm sorry. Did I embarrass you again? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
So I lean into my mistakes, just
No, which
blatantly.
is great because I really feel like that's just such a much like friendlier, more gentle way of doing things. I spent so many years beating myself up. My new thing now to like flip the script is if I start I'm like, oh, I always mess this up. I always do this terrible. I'm like,
Hmm.
you know what? What if none of this changes and I'm exactly the same way as I am, but I see myself as like that the hero in the story instead
Hmm.
of like the person making the mistake. The same thing happened, but like if you kind of change the theme song like
Hmm.
behind it, right? It
Yeah,
changes everything. So all you
totally.
have to do is put better upbeat music behind like the mistake and
Yeah,
everything's
perfect.
fine again. Like
Perfect.
you cue the sunshine and like you play happy music and
Yeah. I make the
I mean it's
drama
not
I
yeah,
make
but
the
it can
drama
really be
into
that
the
simple
comedy,
sometimes. Yeah.
right? Make
I'm
the
like
drama into the
exactly.
comedy.
It could be tragic or it can be very comedic. So,
Yes, I choose comedic.
right? And it's the exact same thing is happening. There's nothing else that changes except for like just the perspective of the whole
Yes,
thing. And
totally.
it's great to be able to find that, to change that, and to make it work for yourself.
Totally.
All right. How can definitives impact friendships and relationships if we're not careful?
Oh, so when we lock people into past behaviors, we're taking away the ability for them to show us, right? So again, building a wall can strain trust. It can strain connection.
Hmm.
You show up differently when you think somebody else is showing up differently, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it really changes the dynamic of the relationship. So you would stop trying to communicate with somebody because they don't understand something or whatever. But it really hinders you, right? And granted, some people never change, right? And you're still going to have people in your life that do things and maybe that never and always will stick in your mind with that person. But the reality is it changes the way you show up in the relationship. And really all we can control is ourselves, right?
Hmm.
So if you change your perspective, even if the person doesn't change their behavior, but if you change your perspective of what is happening, then you can show up differently and you can be like, okay, well, I explained it to them this way last time. Maybe I need to change my approach,
Right.
right? And it helps you learn and show up differently at different times. It's kind of like a growth for you.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, it might also be a growth for them, which would be beautiful, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a growth for them. You don't stunt yourself
Mm-hmm.
because of somebody else's behaviors, right? You grow in spite of.
It's funny that you bring it up that way too, but I've noticed I'm like I'll get super like defensive. I'll be like really just conscious of making a change and I'm like this is something that I really want to change and I've been doing this for so long and I want to come at this differently and I'll put all this work into it and I'll show up very differently. I'll act like completely differently than I had in the past
Mhm.
and I'll do some and when people don't notice that and expect me to act the way that I did before,
Uh-huh.
and they're coming at me like that, I'm like, listen, I am working really hard to be like kind, soft spoken, and compassionate. The least you could do is notice that I'm not being a jerk right now. Okay. Like,
I
if
love
you want me to
that.
continue to be nice to you, you're gonna have to notice it, and I'm gonna need a little encouragement here.
Mm,
So
I love that.
like you need to encourage me to
I
keep, to keep up like the because you know me. I'm so direct and
I
sometimes
absolutely love that.
I don't realize that
Hmm.
my being direct and blunt, like some people will take that offensively. And it's
Hmm.
not generally sometimes it is meant that way, but most of the time it isn't. It's just that I don't like it when people like overcomplicate things and over explain and give me
Hmm.
like a gross explanation of something that can be explained in like a sentence. But not everyone is like me in that capacity.
Yes.
So I have really been trying to like be nice and
I don't.
especially my husband when he doesn't notice that I'm really putting effort into being like very nice and thoughtful about how I'm presenting things. I am mad.
Wow. I'm at the point where I'm like, I'm not really sure what to say here. You're being you're being really nice right now. I just want to commend you for being so nice. I just want to do that for you.
Is that
Yeah.
so much to see? That's all I want. That's just that.
If maybe you just need to tell people what you need or want, and they'll just
Yeah,
do it, and then you don't have to like wait for the expectation
I
of.
guess. I have to say I will never say never on this one, but I've often been disappointed, especially with close family members when I say, "Hey, I want this or I need this," and they look right at you and go, "Yeah, no, I can't do that." I'm glad that you told me that, and I would love to help you, but
I
I'm not going to do that.
You can call me anytime and tell me what you need, and I will follow
No, I know you will.
direction. I will follow direction.
I'm mostly talking about my children. So,
That's awesome, though. I love how you are like, if somebody doesn't know that I'm trying to be nice, I
yeah.
get a little frustrated with that.
Well, especially the people who know, like, I've been called out so many times for being too blunt, for not thinking about people's feelings, like in the way that I say things. And
Hmm.
again, it's not that I don't process things that way. So I
Hmm.
tend to, especially if it's something important, I try to like
Yeah.
cut to the chase and get to it right away. And I've been called down on it several times in my life. So and I have been over the years, I have put in such an effort to change that because I know with my husband and with my one daughter, that does not work well. And I never say there I go. I rarely get the response that I'm looking for. So I've made an effort to change that. And when they react in a way that was like kind of how I used to act, listen, if you want me to keep being nice to you, you're going to have to like at least notice that I am not coming at this the same way.
You're
I'm
cracking
just
me up.
saying.
Cracking me up.
All right, if someone listening wants to work on this, right? What's one small thing they can do to get started?
Yeah. Well, they can start by listening to their own language, right?
Yeah.
be aware, be present in your own conversation with yourself, be present in the conversation with others. When you catch yourself saying always or never, pause and then refrain, right? Just try to think of other words that you can plug in, like you just did often,
Hmm.
right? And so you can always, there it is, always. You can always think of another word, right? It happens because we get kind of stagnant
Yeah,
in
we get
how we,
we get we get stuck in a loop.
yeah, in how we speak. And so being aware of how you're speaking, being aware of the tone behind the definitive is really important too. So give yourself and everyone else room to grow, right? Give yourself that moment. Don't go into the conversation where you're just trying to get all the words out. Think about what you're saying before you say it and just kind of reflect and be okay with, even if you say the always and never and all the definitives, you can change, like you can change that wording. You, like you did, you were like always and then you were like, well, often,
Yeah.
you know it. And be light about it, don't be hard on yourself. This is, everything that we do is a practice. We are none of us have this down. None of us have this whole life thing down. We're practicing. Communication is hard, and we're really trying to get through this. We're all doing the best we can all the time, right? And I think that's super important. I think it's
Yeah.
important to give yourself grace and others grace when you're talking to them. Now, granted, you have people that are difficult. Sometimes you're difficult, right? Like to yourself. Like you're just like, man, I'm just,
Without a doubt.
yeah, sometimes you're just not like, there are days where I'm like, man, I wish I could get away from myself because really not, I'm really not a good person right now. I'm not thinking so hot. Um, but you just have to really work through it and give yourself grace and just really pay attention to the words that you speak. That's important.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, is it's as important the things that you kind of repeat over and over in your head to yourself as what you say to other people. And I know for me, for the longest time, I was not saying great stuff to myself. So when you're
Hmm.
doing that all the time, it makes it really hard to then turn around and say nice things to other people.
Yeah,
And practice just makes better habits.
right.
And it's, you know what, practice never makes perfect because there
Yeah,
is really no perfect, but it does make better habits.
progress.
And I think when you really look into it, the more times you can smile and feel light
Hmm.
and not just like get caught in your own head, like stuck in your own loop, like a skipping record,
Right,
the more you notice that, the easier it becomes. And I think the more you want to do it.
right.
I
It's
know
a,
that's how it is for me. Like
yeah.
that's
Well, and the other thing is too, like when you talk negatively to yourself or talk in the definitives with yourself, somebody else can say something to you and it triggers you, not really for what they said, but all the things that you've said to you.
absolutely, yeah. And if it
Right?
sounds
And you're
too,
just
yeah, and
like,
then now you're mad at them and they didn't really do
yeah,
anything.
you're just like, oh, well, now they believe what I'm telling myself.
Yeah.
Great. So practice makes progress.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. So,
um,
try it out, have some fun with it. Stop
mhm.
and notice, like before you do anything else, just notice how many times you're always saying always and never. And then if you catch yourself doing it enough, start thinking about like what are some other adjectives I can throw in there. How can I change this? How does this sound better? How does it make the other person like look better? How does this get lighter for me, when I
Mhm.
think about it this way, like what takes the burden or the edge off of this
Yeah, and
so that it's
restructure.
not so intense.
Yeah, restructure the sentence. Nothing that we say is like definitive. Like you can always change your words. You can always change your mind. You can, right? It's
Always
like,
change your underwear. Oh,
yes, that's a good idea.
that's a good definitive.
That's that's a good idea. I'm not really sure where that came. That was very random, but
It popped into my head and then it just came out of my mouth.
I see that. I see that.
Mhm.
Fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we wrap this, as we wrap, I I can't have a straight face right now with you.
We're gonna say goodbye now, is what she's trying to say. It's
Yes.
not coming out, but thank you for having fun with us. This was just a really fun, lighthearted episode, and I hope that you can always find another way
Yes.
to say something
Remember,
nice.
yeah, remember that you're powerful, right? Your words are powerful, you're powerful, you're capable, and you're enough. So I think those are great words to constantly say to yourself.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Friendship, Wellness, and Wisdom. Don't forget to subscribe or follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on social media for more updates. See you next time.